How's it going there, folks? Welcome back here to a Tuesday afternoon. It is the Earthmaster in here with a special update on earthquake activity around the Japan region. Been watching this closely here over the last couple weeks. It's an area on the southern coast here of Japan around the Nankai Trough. Just going to go ahead and dig into a little bit of specifics and potentially what I think could be leaning towards a megaquake out here in this zone. Now, the latest earthquake, and this is just a fraction. I'm going to show you all the earthquakes that are taking place here in just a second. This is just what the USGS is showing. One of the latest quakes here, a 4.7 off of the swarming region. The swarming area is down here to the south a little bit, so it looks like we are getting some further pressurization out here across the western edge, southwestern edge here of the Nankai Trough. That has been an area of some decent magnitudes here recently with a number of 4s. I believe the largest so far is a 5.4, but this extends back here. This extends back into last year as well. Again, the Nankai Trough is this subduction zone here with a number of segments. I want to show you guys last year's activity as well. This is the same region, Nankai Trough here, the kind of the quiet zone here. It is building up some steam, capable of producing up to a 9.0 earthquake. Now the swarming area today and in the last couple weeks here, right around this region. But if you look, last year's activity, a little bit closer up here to the Nankai Trough, the western area, this region had some decent sized earthquakes up here, including a 7.1, 6.8, and a number of other swarms out there that kind of connect the dots to our current swarm. Look at this area up here as well across the subduction zone interface where it begins to subduct. And also back over here across the eastern area of the Nankai Trough, a number of swarms as well. So this is something we got to watch really closely here, because I do believe all this strain that's happening around it is, it's about ready to produce a big earthquake here. Now, the Japanese Meteorological Agency here last year put out a megaquake warning, increasing the odds of an earthquake on the Nankai Trough to 80% here of a megaquake within the next 30 years, I believe they said. And that's actually a considerably high number. I want to show you guys real quick the basically the setup here. Not that image. Let me go back over here real quick and see what I did with it. It always seems to pop off here. That's a tsunami. Here's a prime example real quick of the section of the Nankai Trough. You got a couple different sections there on the eastern and the western side. Now where did my, I guess got to bring this back up here. There's my map. This is a map I was trying to find. But let me read this here first for you guys real quick. On the Nankai Trough, the earthquakes which occur on this subduction zone have a return period of about 90 to 200 years. And our last decent ruptures here were back. There we go. A number of images here. It was back in 1944. We had segment C and D rupture. And then 2 years later, 1946, A and B, without Section E. Now, this section up here is really primed here for some big earthquake activity. It's part of the subduction zone, and if that goes, well, we could talk about that triggering the rest of the subduction zone there in a sequence of events. And it shows it right here on this image. If we happen to see an 8-pointer over here along segment E, well, earthquakes may be triggered here on the western side because they tend to have that repeat period here of earthquake activity. In terms of when one segment goes, well, then we get the other segments rupturing. Similar to 1854, right? December 23rd, 1854, we've seen C, D, and E, and that's when last area of E ruptured. Been building up a lot of steam here since then. We had an 8.4. 1 day later, an 8.4 on the western segment. It tends to happen like that. If not days, maybe weeks, sometimes years, but they always rupture in pairs out here. So it's possible E could be the trigger here that could definitely set off the Nankai Trough. Now, if you look at the last time something like that happened, where E did not rupture, we got A, B, C, and D in 1605 with a 7.9. It was only roughly about 100 years later that the entire segment ruptured out here in the 8.6. So when sections go without having an earthquake in the sequence here that takes place in the entirety, well, that ups the chances there of seeing a larger event take place sooner. So that's why we could be looking at the period here of the low side of the return period, about 90 years or so. But that's, like I say, that's all subject to how much strain is built up out here. But a lot has been taking place, again, in the last... It's been going on since the last year or so. And this earthquake swarm that's recently kicked up down here across the southern end, southwestern edge here of the Nankai Trough, or off of it, is raising some eyebrows and some questions, wondering if we're going to see a big one here soon. Remember that 7-pointer up here, a number of swarms here. Now, it may not look like a lot on the current map. Let me show you guys the last day of activity here. We only got 7 earthquakes, right? Well, I found the Japan site here, the Meteorological Agency, and this has pretty much all the earthquakes that are taking place here in the Sea of Tokara. That's in this area. Let me show you guys where it's at on the map. Right down where the current swarm is going on here. Here's the Nankai Trough just to the southern and southwestern edge here. Now, I want to show you how many earthquakes have been striking out here. That's just the latest one. Look at today's events. A bunch of 2s, bunch of 3s, some 4s in there. USGS, only reporting a fraction of them. They don't report the smaller ones. But look, there's literally hundreds, maybe up to 100 earthquakes here in today's time period. 2s and 3s. I'm sure there's 1s in here as well, but it doesn't look like they're showing them. But that is concerning with that many earthquakes striking out here. And it's been going on here in the past week or so. There's the 30th, June 30th, probably another 100 earthquakes or so, maybe even more. And then you go back to the 29th, and there's still a bunch of 2s and 3s, probably another 100 earthquakes during that day as well. So probably over the last, week or so, we're talking about it could be 700, 800 earthquakes or so that's taken place in this area of the it's adjacent sea of the Tokara Islands. That's again in this area where the southwestern edge here of the Nankai Trough exists, where we're seeing that earthquake swarm right now down here. So something big is brewing out here with the 7-pointer that struck back here last year, I think is just that was somewhat of an eye-opener there. That I believe is a result of mega strain building up out here. That could very well be some type of, not foreshocks, because that specifically didn't occur here on the Nankai Trough, but just off of it. And I think that's just an eye-opener. It's when that earthquake struck, along with the subsequent earthquake swarm, is when the Japanese government there put out that Megaquake warning. So things are definitely interesting out here, and the number of earthquakes. I wish I could show it here on the map, but it's I don't see an option here to add all of these quakes here onto a map layout. There's a lot of them, definitely a lot of them, and just alone today, I'm not going to count them all, but if you think that's 10 earthquakes right there, you keep going down. There's 20, 30. 40, 50, it just keeps going on. There's probably a good 100 earthquakes or so that's happened today there in that area of Japan. And the potential is, it's a little scary here. I want to show you guys the potential run-ups here, not only from the shaking, right? You get some strong shaking out there, but tsunami heights. That's 34 meters there, it looks like, around the Kurashiro area. That comes up to about 111 feet. Now, that's roughly within the range of the 2011 Japan tsunami. Remember when that 9-pointer struck there off the east coast of Japan into the Japan Trench? The maximum observed tsunami height in that earthquake was 131 feet in Miyako City. So, something this similar can do quite a bit of damage here, as they're stating on the map. Number of houses destroyed or burnt down looks like 2.35 million. So highly populated area out here, and it's a hazard that one has to really take into account here the what's going on with this intense earthquake swarming. I did add here onto the live stream a station very close to this area of where the earthquake activity is occurring in Japan, and I believe it's going to be this one right here. Kagoshima, it looks like. This one. And then here's a Japan station that sits a little bit closer up the coast towards Tokyo. But these smaller quakes have definitely been showing up on here. I don't see it right now, but just a short time ago it was showing a couple of the smaller ones. Looks like it's been a couple minutes since our last one. This was at 1614. Let me refresh this. Yeah, so about 15-20 minutes ago was our last 2.6. But if you look here, you know, there's a number of earthquakes each hour that are just coming in here, and it's definitely an eye-opener here, folks. And this latest earthquake, like I show there on the map at 4.7, is a little bit closer here to the east, much closer to the Nankai Trough region there, which is fairly well primed. And Section E, remember Section E has not had a rupture there since 1854. A little on the scary side here. It looks like it's thought to have caused at least 12 major earthquakes in the last 1,300 years. That's pretty crazy. It looks like all but one occasion, rupture of segment C plus D and E have been followed by rupture of segments A and B within a few years. If not a few years, a couple days, like we've seen in the 1854 events. Now here it mentioned about Section E, Segment E, which is the northeasternmost part of the megathrust area, has not ruptured since 1854. A future great earthquake involving rupture along this and possibly other segments has been proposed as a major risk for the south coast there. Here's where they mention that, remember that 7-pointer that struck there a little bit closer up towards the Nankai Trough back in August 2004. That was a 7.1. Warned the risk of a megathrust earthquake on the Nankai Trough is relatively higher than usual, and is issued as a caution warning for the first time ever in Japanese history. And it goes back here. This just shows you guys all the potential. The greatest potential here is, you know, up to, I believe it's up to a 9.0 is the maximum potential if this thing ruptures all at once. Instead of, you know, section A and B producing 8.4 and then, you know, a number of years later or a couple days later, another 8.4 on the other segment. But if it ruptures all at once, it's got some potential to do you know, stronger, larger magnitudes here. This one, coincidentally here, 7 years after the Cascadia megathrust earthquake, 1707 for the 8.6 and the full rupture. 1700 is the 9-pointer there off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, Cascadia subduction zone. Interesting. So I'm watching this closely here, folks. It's got a lot of stuff going on around it right now. I just want to see if we can spot the next earthquake that comes in. There we go. 2.6 and a 2.4. Maybe it's not picking up the super small ones there, or they haven't came in yet. But this is one of the stations here that is awfully close. And this is that triangle right there. That's where the seismograph station is. Earthquake swarm is occurring roughly probably right down here, just a small ways down off this area here where that seismograph station's at. But it has been picking up some of the earthquakes there. Maybe it was only about 3 and above that it was picking up, but it is picking it up a lot closer than the other Japanese station there that I have, Japan station. There's just been a lot of activity up here across the eastern edge here, where Section E that has not ruptured. This was end of last year. Quite a few shallow quakes just before that subduction zone area. Some into it. That one's pretty deep there, into that deeper area of that subduction zone. All of these are. So it's definitely building. Again, it's a good possibility here with this not rupturing since 1854. You know, that's a lot of time that has passed here. Almost 200 years. Almost. And again, that could potentially just trigger the rest of it here. There's definitely quite a bit of strain here since 1944. An 8-pointer over here could definitely have that effect on it. But yeah, this is about the only station. I don't know if anyone else has maybe a little bit better layout or a map that can show this, you know, on a map scale instead of just a list. I tried looking around this site here, but I can't find anything. And I know the EMSC data does not cover all this earthquake activity either. I'll go back here and show you guys the EMSC data. They're showing a lot of earthquake activity, but nothing that the Japanese government's showing here. These guys just showing the typical. They might show a 3, mostly 5s and 4s. It looks like, but there's some 3s in there. But there's been way more than that. You know, EMSC just I think reports a fraction of them, but the Japanese Meteorological Agency here accounting for every single one that's taken place. And again, there's hundreds of earthquakes. I'm not going to go and count every single one of them, but it's up there. In the last week here, it's numerous hundreds of earthquakes here. And this event could, trigger a Pacific-wide tsunami. Good possibility. Definitely local for sure. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of loss of life in there as well. Let's see, this one, this is the most recent one with section A and B and C and D rupturing. That was a magnitude 8.1 and on one section. And then, was it 2 years later, 8.1 to 8.4, rupturing section A and B. C and D on 1944, and then 2 years later, A and B. Where's E? E has not given in yet. And that could be the triggering effect out here. So I'm watching this closely here, folks. I just wanted to point it out. I know I do cover it a little bit here, but I think the likelihood of seeing something bigger out here is increasing with this swarm that's just been, coming in left and right there across Japan. It's been an area of just intense earthquake activity here, and it's not going away. That leads me to believe here that this is definitely leading up to something bigger. You got to take into account what's around here, The general plate stress movement, and I show this map quite a bit here in this area of Japan. Up over here, you got Japan. The Filipino plate here, arrows all pointing to the west-northwest, right into that subduction zone. So the strain is increasing with reinforced strain here by the Pacific plate. When the Pacific plate moves, it puts major strain out here against this area of Japan down into Taiwan. The Nankai Trough sits right there in that hazard zone, unfortunately, and that's why it doesn't take thousands of years, even hundreds of years. I think what is it, 90 to 200 year max. But with Section E there being left out of the picture back in 1944, that increases the odds of seeing an earthquake here sooner, just because of this has not ruptured. It takes just a little bit of time, geologically speaking, here because of the enormous strain out here. Back, was it last year? January of last year? When we had that 7-pointer back over here on the backside, west coast here of Japan. Maybe it was back up here. Either way, that's a bad sign as well, just because that's really locked and loaded here in terms of the strain accumulation. And that these earthquakes that occur away from the plate boundary here, good indicator of the amount of strain that's built up here. But it's holding on for now, but I don't know how much longer, folks. We'll just continue to watch it. I'm that's why I kind of pulled up this seismograph station here. When it works, it goes offline periodically here, but it does work, and I guess we'll have to check back on it. But it's a good area to watch. West Coast here, let me give a quick recap of California. Some movement down south here into Baja California, 3.8 earthquake from yesterday. As far as today's events go, watching a cluster going on up here south of the bay. I know there was some shaking out there this morning near the Morgan Hill. Was it Morgan Hill? Gilroy had one down here as well. Los Banos is around that. Well, that's west of there, underneath that reservoir. That's not good news there. But it's been clustered. A lot of earthquake activity clustered here around this region. And there's a number of faults that sit within here. The Hayward Fault, for one, that's well overdue here for a big earthquake. That's another area that's primed. A lot of primed faults out here. A lot of, it sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, but it's science out here. This is, what happens when the plates move around. If we didn't have plate tectonics, we would live probably in a very ugly world, just completely flat. So plate tectonics out here create our beautiful mountains and coast range out here in California and Sierra Nevada. And they got the valley in the middle. I'm not a big fan of it. It's 100 plus degrees out here right now. But but we got these earthquakes. We got fault systems out here. And some of these are showing activity that really actually been pretty quiet for a while, such as this one here around the San Luis Reservoir. That has a dam up here. And I don't think that would be good to have a big earthquake underneath there. I covered this a little bit last night on the fault system here, the Ortigalita fault. That slow slip rate along that area on the west side of San Joaquin Valley, but it can produce some big earthquakes. 6.5 underneath this area would probably have some damaging effects there on that dam. But that's, that's anywhere you live out here where there's mountain ranges and plate boundaries. You're going to come across the potential here for future earthquakes. And the San Andreas Fault, another one similar to what I mentioned there on the Nankai Trough, how section E could trigger A, B, C, and D there around the Nankai Trough. There's been some chat about the Parkfield segment here. The next earthquake could potentially trigger the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, where we've been waiting for an 8.1 for how many decades now? Well, it's there. We're so much more into the future now. We're 1 day closer, 1 second closer to the big one. Eventually, it's going to be used in past tense terms there, right? You guys remember when that big one struck out here yesterday? Look how many aftershocks are occurring. It's coming. I don't know when. But, up here in the Parkfield segment, we're coming up on the regular interval between 20 and 22 years of a 6-pointer. It's almost like clockwork out here. Very dynamic area where a lot of geologists and scientists study this area because of the regular occurrence of large quakes here. So 2004 was the last large event. Here we are, 2004. Here we are, 2025. Wow, we're right in that 20 to 22 year range where we should be seeing another 6-pointer. And this area down south is primed as it can be. And around the plate boundary here, you get that adjustment. That could definitely cause a domino effect here for the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. That's a fact here. We've seen triggering of earthquakes out here for many years, not only in California but other areas of the world. Up in Seattle, a little bit of movement there on the Seattle Fault. That's another doom and gloom system. A lot of time has passed up there since the big one. Here we are living in the future, guys. How's it feel? Right? We got big cities. You can do anything, buy anything you want, or just go window shopping like I do. But we're so populated out here now compared to hundreds of years ago when we last had events, or thousands of years ago on certain other slower slip rate fault systems here. We're just populated. We're living in that age here where big earthquakes are going to start popping up here, I think, soon, for many of us. And that's just the facts. That is definitely the facts. That is way active out here. A lot more so than normal. around the San Andreas Fault too here. Now, I don't know if we have enough here, enough strain for a big one along the San Andreas Fault, the northern segment here. It's where that 1906 earthquake struck. We're well over 100 years since that happened. That was a 7.9. That one was a big one. Something like that today. Whoo. Yeah. Massive population density out there in the San Francisco Bay. Hayward Fault, that's well overdue. Calaveras Fault's a big one out there as well. It's just, we could go on and on and on, about the potential out here, but got to look at certain areas of increasing movement. California looks really cluttered today. A lot of earthquakes all over the place and various fault systems. What concerns me here is this area back over here. Back off of the plate boundary, south of the Garlock Fault shear zone. This area, you normally don't get a lot of earthquake activity, but it's been showing here in the last couple days. Many faults out here showing some strain. Look at this earthquake just off the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. So we got to watch that, folks. Anything can happen at any time. One earthquake there on Anza. So we'll watch numerous areas, obviously, but I'm concerned right now with the Japan area, the increasing movement. This is a station to watch right here. This one is a little bit further up the line here, closer to Tokyo. So that wasn't picking up the smaller earthquake activity, but the other station I showed you guys is pretty close here to the epicenter of these quakes. And again, the Nankai Trough, pretty well primed. We'll watch Section E, see what happens here in the coming days. For now, just stay safe out there. I'm kind of inside here. It's like I said, it's 100 degrees out. Got thunderstorms up here to the north of me. I don't know if we're going to get any storms down here. Let me show you guys real quick. Weather radar. So yeah, it looks like areas outside of Redding here. Then look at all that lightning, man. That's not good news. Luckily, there is some rain. But if you get these strikes that are striking outside of the heavy rain area, they can easily start forest fires out there. Up over here is heavily forested. There's some heavy rain there outside of Weaverville, which is good, but gotta watch that. Nothing around the Chico area for now. Reno area south of Lake Tahoe as well, getting some thunderstorms. But yeah, just kind of hoping for some to slip down here into the valley. It would be nice. Look at Oregon getting some big time storms up there as well. Let's check out the fire map, see if anything's been added here. I have a feeling later tonight it's going to be more active. Look at this fire up here, Summit Fire. Yikes. There we got mandatory evacuations up there. Looks like this just stirred up here today. Wind's moving off to the northwest there. Again, this will probably be filled in a lot more later tonight. Some storms out there. Let's see here. Yeah, it's unfortunately, like I said, there's a lot of lightning. But it is neat with all these cameras to look around. You can just click on those, and the actual site, though, this is integrated here into the Watch Duty app, but it's PG&E cam, not campgrounds. What is it called? Is it Alert California? Yes, I believe this is the one. Couldn't remember the name, but this is pretty neat. It's got a simplified layout here of all the cameras there across California. There's lots of them. It's pretty neat, though. You can just zoom in on the map, and it gives you a neat little overlay here of all the different cameras that are within your zoomed view. And it's pretty dry out there. A lot of rainfall over the winter time, but it's since dried out, and everything is it's bad fuel right now. The fire is or the fuel moisture is bad. Yikes. That's looking out towards the valley. I'm breathing in all that air. Can't even see. This is looking from the mountains here north of Chico, in between Chico and Red Bluff, looking over 99 towards the Coast Range over here. But man, that is really smoggy conditions. That's crazy. When I'm up there hiking up in the Lassen area, when I hike some of the peaks there and I overlook the valley, it's very smoggy down here. One doesn't know that breathing in all that bad air. That's why I want to get out of this valley. It's not good. When we took the kids up there for a hike up in Mount Lassen here recently, one of the girls said, why is the sky dark blue? They've never seen the sky dark blue. Out of all the smog, it's normally just kind of a haze, nasty smoggy haze in the air in the Sacramento Valley. But yeah, it's sad, but I'm glad that they notice how blue it can be up in the mountains and away from all that smog. But also at the same time, up in the mountains, you have to deal with, the thunderstorms and the fire potential out here. It's quite dry. This is just the base of it, base of the mountain range out there. Kind of neat looking. Anyway, that's called alertcalifornia.org. All right, folks, I'm out of here. We will catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening. I just wanted to touch base there on a little bit of earthquake activity on the San Juan Bautista area. That's been showing signs of that even last night. A bunch of little spikes. It reminds me of rock fracturing there, just getting ready to pop. But another one on Anza as well. All right. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening, folks. We'll definitely keep an eye on things. If anything big happens, of course, we'll jump in here with an update and keep an eye on the news here. But watch the Japan Trench, or the Japan Trench over here. Not really concerned with another 9-pointer over here, considering it was just 2011. But the Nankai Trough, this Kumano Ridge area, definitely fairly well pressurized, and the swarms are not going away. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening, folks. Have a good one. Stay cool.